look back on it.
Oh, yeah, but I'm just drawing the profile.
All right, cool. Okay, so we are recording the session. So if you do miss any part of it, we will be sending it out afterwards, just in case you want to rewatch it. But just to go through the agenda a little bit, we're going to start with a bit of an update from MPAQ, and then an update on the QBCC governance review that happened earlier this year. Emma will be talking about an update about family and domestic violence leave. We've got quite a few technical topics that we'll be discussing. Ernie and Kent will be covering off on those. And then I just wanted to touch on some of the events that we've got coming up as well. But let's get started. Penny, did you want to kick us off with the update?
Sure. Thanks, Summer. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for making the time to join with us today. Happy Friday. All right, so today I'm just going to cover some key topics around the National Construction Code. So I'm going to provide a bit of an update on where that is. I'm going to talk a little bit around website domain name changes that are coming in that you need to be aware of. I'm also going to touch on the Queensland Workforce Strategy, which was released this week, and then some COVID changes that were just announced on Tuesday evening as well. So I'll go through those with everyone today. If anyone has any questions, just let me know and I'll be able to answer them. So the first one's obviously the National Construction Code. So the Australian Building Codes Board has released the second stage preview of the National Construction Code 2022, and it's really focused around setting out the energy efficiency and condensation provisions that were excluded from the first stage preview. So the final documents are now available to download from the ABCB website, and they specifically include the energy efficiency measures. They talk around the condensation mitigation measures. There's the whole of home efficiency factor standards, and there's the heating and cooling load limits and standards as well. So there was a final regulatory impact statement that has been released, and it was agreed by building ministers at their last meeting last week. So as part of that, the National Construction Code will be adopted by states and territories on the 1st of May 2023. So originally it was to take effect from the 1st of September this year, but noting that we've had a new federal government and I believe a new building minister in Victoria as well, that had to come together first to be able to sort of finalise the elections and then come together as part of the new building ministers meeting. And as part of that process, they agreed that they will adopt, the states and territories will adopt from the 1st of May 2023. So the new livable housing requirements will commence on the 1st of October 2023, and the new energy efficiency and condensation mitigation requirements will commence on the 1st of October 2023. And the new lead-free plumbing product requirements will commence from the 1st of September 2025. And I know we've previously spoken in detail about the new lead-free plumbing products and what the requirements are to bring it down. There's a transitional arrangements which allow practitioners to continue using the relevant provisions of the NCC 2019 up until the relevant transition period. So the ABCB has published on their website the National Construction Code, and that will be available from the 1st of October. So this will make it available for those who wish to use those new provisions and also allow industry to actually adjust to the new requirements before they actually become mandatory. So there is sort of in-depth articles on some of the key changes. And I know last night we had a Brisbane North Trade Expo and Steve Jennison was there, and he presented from Moreton Bay Regional Council, and he talked about what those key changes look like from a plumbing perspective. So that's something that we'll be able to get out to industry and members as well to let them know what those changes will look like when they come into effect on the 1st of May 2023. The ABCB is also looking at announcing an energy efficiency seminar in the early part of the new year. So that will also be available for those that are interested. So that's just sort of a little bit from ABCB perspective. The next one is the website domain name changes, and you've probably heard some of the ads on the radio. So up until the 20th of September this year, changes will come into effect regarding domain names with the launch of .au direct. So if you have a website with a .com.au domain name, for example, mybusiness.com.au, you will be able to buy and register the same business name under a newly available .au direct domain name. But if you don't apply for priority access for your .au direct name for your business from the 21st of September, someone else could actually buy and register the domain name. For example, if it was mybusiness.au. So these similar yet different domains could be confusing for obviously your customers. So it's really important that you go on and register so that you can actually reserve your domain name. So yeah, just wanted to touch on that because I know we've had some communication about that, and I know I've heard it on the radio as well. So just so important to make sure that you go in and register your domain name prior to the 20th of September so that you can get that .au. All right, the next one is the Queensland Workforce Strategy. So just this week, the Queensland Government has released a 10-year plan to address the workforce shortages, which would see Queenslanders who want to work supported into good jobs. So the strategy is really focused on good people, good jobs. That's what they're calling it. And it's about delivering programs to help Queenslanders get a good job and connect businesses with new workers. So the program will focus on 5 areas, including increasing workforce participation, developing local solutions, supporting school to work transitions, attracting and retaining workers, and skilling Queenslanders now and into the future. There's going to be 70 million will be invested in the first action plan over the next 3 years, so from 2022 to 2025, to ensure that industry, businesses, communities and government work together to deliver the workers' needs for Queensland. So the strategy is available, and I'll post it in the chat shortly. So if you need to find out more information, you know where to go to be able to access it. So yeah, that's a little bit around the Queensland Workforce Strategy, and then probably just from a COVID update perspective. So you would have been aware that the government has advised that we've sort of reached a new stage in the pandemic, and it's more, the approach is more around managing COVID. So the Parliament this week, Queensland Parliament was held this week, and Queensland Health have advised that they would not be reporting COVID case numbers daily from Monday to Friday, with no reporting on weekends. And as we're sort of transitioning to live with COVID, they're looking to ease and work with the community. So daily reporting will be wound back. A blanket COVID vaccine mandate direction for private healthcare workers has been lifted or will be lifted as well. And I know that I heard it on the radio this morning. There's discussions around why is it lifted for private and not for the public service. And then also National Cabinet has agreed for people who test positive for COVID will only be required to isolate for 5 days from September 9. So currently the requirement is if you catch it, you have to isolate for 7 days. But from the 9th of September, it'll only be for 5 days. Also, if you're travelling domestically throughout Queensland from the 9th of September as well, you will no longer be required or mandated to wear a mask on planes as well. So that's just a little update from me in some of the key areas that have just sort of happened last week and this week that it's great for you to be aware of. Okay, I'll hand back to Summer and I'll post those links. Oh, sorry, no, I'm going to go on with the QBCC governance review. I'm going to give you an update on that. And then after that,
keep going. Sorry, Penny.
No, that's all right. And then I'll post the links in the chat as well. So the QBCC governance review, I'm sure everybody's heard about it. We've talked about it for a while now. But back in November last year, the Department of Energy and Public Works commissioned an independent review into the governance arrangements of the QBCC. And really the objective was around getting an independent review to ensure that the governance of QBCC is contemporary and fit for purpose and reflects best practice for a regulator under the objectives of the QBCC Act. So the report, together with the government's response, has now been released. And as part of that, there's 17 recommendations and they've been accepted by the government, and a 90-day action plan has been released. If we go on to the next slide, it just talks around some of the key recommendations that have come out of it, which I'll just touch on now. So a refocus the QBCC's regulatory role to licensing and compliance, so having a really dedicated area to be looking at that. Establishing an independent mediation, resolution and review unit. Invest in an integrated information management system. Ensure strategic planning reflects government's expectations. Implement a comprehensive compliance and enforcement strategy, which is obviously something that we are strongly supportive of. And strengthen and develop the building industry through effective education, support, information and advice. Something else that we are definitely very supportive of. One of the things that's just not listed on here, but I just wanted to touch on, was just in regards to the technical qualifications document. So currently it sits within the QBCC, so they have the powers, the Commissioner has the powers to determine what the technical qualifications are for somebody to be licensed as a plumber and drainer here in Queensland. It states what training you need to do. As part of this governance review, it's been identified that that document's actually going to be transitioned back to the department, which is the Department of Energy and Public Works here in Queensland, and they will have control and make the decisions of it, and it will be taken off the regulator. So the regulator will obviously license against the technical qualifications document, but it won't be their particular document. So I just wanted to touch on that. So that will be a change for us, and we'll be working closely with the department on that. All right, that's probably enough from me, Summer, so I'll hand back to you now. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions that they want to raise now? I just figured we'd throw it out just in case anyone had anything that they'd been thinking of.
Where do you register your new domain name? Is there a link that we've got?
Yes, there is. I'll put that in the chat as well. I'll put the domain name link, and I'll also put the link for the workforce strategy.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool. All right. So next up, we're going to move on to the family and domestic violence leave update from Emma. Emma, when you're ready.
Thanks, Emma. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So we just wanted to highlight one of the bills that have been introduced into Parliament. It was introduced back in July, and it's still been, I guess, a bit fleshed out further in Parliament. So what they're looking to introduce is 10 days of paid family and domestic violence leave in every 12 months for every employee, no matter whether they're full-time, part-time or casual employees. And it's on a as needed basis. So it's not a guarantee that everybody is going to have access to this leave, but it's basically there if somebody needs this leave to be able to do something based on their circumstances and their situation. So what the Labor government has proposed as part of this bill is that the paid amount will be at what the person would have received had they been working, as opposed to basically their ordinary rate of pay. So for example, if somebody was due to work at a certain height and they were due to get a height allowance, then they would be still paid that height allowance for the time off that they're having leave for family and domestic violence leave. It's also going to be applicable for casual employees that are rostered for that time. So if a casual employee called up today and they were due to be rostered tomorrow, they would have an entitlement to be paid for that leave, which is a very new way of thinking for casual employees, as pretty much they always get a 25% loading to compensate them for not having any leave entitlement. So this one's a new addition. The other area of this bill that's proposed is that employees have access it from their first day of employment. So they could work potentially one day or half a day and then need to take that time and have access to potentially the 10 days or as needed. If it is passed, then the legislation would commence from the 1st of February next year. And for small businesses, so those with less than 15 employees, it would commence from the 1st of August 2023. We're waiting at the moment to see what the exact specifics are of this bill and what that means for business, and in particular around what that evidence looks like. So at the moment, there is an entitlement for employees to have access of 5 days of unpaid family and domestic violence leave. And some of the evidence that has been suggested through different cases that have gone before the Commission is such things as documents issued by the police, court orders, support services documents, so where they might be seeking help from a social support worker, or a statutory declaration. However, with this new bill, they're proposing that the evidence is going to be what's reasonable in the circumstances of that employee's situation. It can also be potentially for an employee that is assisting an immediate family member in their family and domestic violence situation. So, for example, if I was helping, say, my sister who's in that sort of situation, I might need to take a day of leave. It's grey at the moment whether the perpetrator in that relationship would be entitled to this leave as well and be paid for it. And I guess all the lawyers are looking at and keeping a close eye on what is actually being discussed in Parliament and what it's going to look like for that bill. So it's a new concept, especially now that it is going to be paid leave, whereas previously it was unpaid leave. And as soon as we get more information about what that bill will mean for small businesses, we will certainly keep everybody up to date. But it's basically to give you an overview that it is coming in this sort of format, whether it's exactly as it's been proposed in the bill or not. It might have some slight variations, but it's something to start thinking about for your business. So if you've got any questions on it, please certainly give myself or Kim in the HR team a call and we can talk you through. Thanks, Summer.
Thanks. We did actually have a question from Damien. Damien, I don't know if you want to say the question or if you want me to just read it out. Oh, he's on mute.
You can read it out.
Okay.
I think you've almost answered it because it's not actually coming into effect yet, but it was whether it be additional so that we can figure out basically if it's additional to the existing leave or taken from an existing entitlement, as in annual leave or sick leave.
No, it's additional.
So it's an extra 10 days a year that can potentially. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'd have to do that in our calculations as a business.
Yeah. So I guess what some lawyers are suggesting is that based on the statistics of the uptake of the current 5 days unpaid leave, there's not a lot of employees that are accessing it. So it may not be every single employee accessing the 10 days per year every year, but it's kind of the business has to have provisions for it because there may be some employees that will need that every year, basically. So I guess if you're preparing for every employee to have the 10 days personal carers leave, like their sick leave, and then have this as an additional 10 days, then you're going to be covered, basically.
Yep. Thank you.
No worries.
Cool. Thanks, Emma.
Thanks, Em.
Okay, next we're going to move on to the technical topics that Ernie's going to be covering off on. So Ernie, I can't see you, but I know you're there.
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Okay, so I think the first one you've got is the new AS 3500.
Yeah, so Penny mentioned that the new Plumbing Code of Australia, whilst delayed, is scheduled to come out reasonably soon. It was slated for 1 September, then it was 1 October, and now it's possibly 1 May next year. In saying that, as Penny mentioned, you can access the document and you can read it, but it wouldn't be implemented until 1 May next year. In doing that, the Plumbing Code of Australia calls up a range of new standards. One of those primarily is the 3500 series, excuse me. One of those changes, there are changes, and there will be training available online for people to access shortly. But one of those changes that will come into effect is junctions in drains. When a 100 mil branch is to meet your drain, the junction is to be kicked or pitched at 15 degrees minimum. This is to prevent backwash or surcharge up the branch line or up other branch lines when toilets are flushed or different fixtures are utilised, and prevent blockages and things like that. So there is mention of it in the current standard, but it's not enforceable. It kind of contradicts itself in the current standard. But under the new 3500 2021, it will be implemented, and that 15 degrees will be enforced moving forward. But at the moment, we don't have to worry about it until next year. So it's just a heads up on that one.
That's only 100 mil then.
It's only 100 to 100. So if you've got a different size branch to a different size drain, it doesn't affect it. It's only 100 to 100. Okay, this is just briefly on directing or supervising other persons. Now, this has come up again recently, primarily in direction, but we just thought we'd cover it all quickly. Under the Plumbing and Drainage Act, Section 57, there's three main explanations there for supervision or direction of other persons. Now, 1 and 2, I'm not too concerned about. That's, we all should be aware of. If you've got an employee or someone working for you and you want to instruct them or direct them or supervise and direct them to perform work, you have to, as the supervisor, you have to hold the equivalent license to be able to direct or supervise them, and they have to hold the appropriate license to be performing the work. But 57.3 there, recently we've had someone recently, but there's been people in the past who have been prosecuted or fined for asking someone else to perform a job for them. As an example, if I was doing a job at a shopping centre and I didn't hold the backflow endorsement, and I rang Damien up and I said, Damien, can you come out and test these 4 valves for me? Damien would come out and do it, send me an invoice. I would then invoice my client. It's being interpreted that we're not allowed to do that because I'm directing Damien to perform work that I'm not licensed for. We're actually petitioning and trying to get clarification on this, where 57.3 doesn't say that. In the example I've just given, Damien is a fully licensed person who has the endorsement on his license. He doesn't need direction or supervision. I've just asked him to do a job that I'm not licensed to do. So we have petitioned that to the Services Trades Licensing Advisory Panel and further up to the Services Trades Council of the QBCC, and we're looking for a clarification on that. Another, as was mentioned before, the technical qualifications for licensing will be going back over to the department away from the QBCC. Under our plumbing and drainage license, one of the endorsements we have available to us is for commercial and industrial fire sprinklers. Now, if you want to work on fire, you can do that under your plumbing license, but that excludes domestic and residential or commercial and industrial fire sprinklers. They require an additional endorsement on your license. The training that's been required for that for the past 10 or so years has been the Certificate 3 in Fire, which sounds onerous, and it is a little bit onerous, but between Certificate 3 in Plumbing and Certificate 3 in Fire, under the current units or under the current training package, there is an 11-unit gap, meaning if you went and did those 11 units, you would have the equivalent to Certificate 3 in Fire and could be issued that qualification, therefore getting the endorsement. different entities out there, being the fire industry and the union and such, are petitioning currently to make that an apprenticeship requirement. Meaning you would have to be apprenticed as a sprinkler fitter for 3 years. Gain the Certificate 3 in fire protection qualification in order to get an endorsement on your license to perform sprinkler fitting work. What that would effectively do would kill the endorsement, because you'd no longer need an endorsement because you'd be a licensed sprinkler fitter. You know, we've been fighting this for a couple of more for 6 to 12 months now, and fingers crossed we will. We're at the pointy end, and we will get a final decision on this in the next week or two. We don't support this. We're very, very much against any reduction in the license for plumbers, and we wouldn't support them having to get a sprinkler fitter qualification in order to perform work that's clearly plumbing work. And I will try and move along a little bit quicker. Contract requirements, in a nutshell, $3,300. If you're doing work that equals or is greater than $3,300, be it commercial or domestic work, you must have a contract in place. It's not a new requirement. This has been in for a very long time, but we quite often are asked by people, when did this come in? Oh, I haven't been doing that. $3,300. There are some variations between what you do have to do between a commercial and a domestic client. If it's hydraulic design, if you're designing, doing a hydraulic drawing for someone, which you're able to do under your contractor's license, if it exceeds $1,100, you can't do it for someone else, but you would have to have a contract in place for that sort of work. If the work is for yourself, you can do a hydraulic drawing to any value, but if you're doing it for someone else, you've got an $1,100 cap. Also, with the domestic building contracts, you must give your customer a consumer building guide, which outlines what your contract and what you're protecting your customer with your contract. If the work is over $20,000 or more, before the owner signs the contract, they have to get that consumer building guide. Very similar trigger with home warranty insurance. Now, this only pertains to domestic work. Your home warranty insurance also has a trigger of $3,300. Any domestic work over $3,300 must have a home warranty insurance policy put into place. Those policies are through QBCC. It does exempt water heaters. Heated water work or replacement of a water heater is not under the home warranty insurance on its own, but if you're doing major works or a new build or something like that, and all the work is over $3,300 and you're including a water heater in there, then it falls under the policy, just because you're putting a policy in place for everything anyway. So it only pertains to domestic works. There is the $3,300 trigger there. It's based on your total work costs. So you can't split your account. So you can't do $1,000 worth of work today, $1,000 worth of work tomorrow, and $2,000 worth of work on Monday, and say, I don't need to put a policy in place. Likewise with the contracts, it's your total value to the work. It's not piecemeal. And as I said, your heated water is exempt.
Ernie, can you hear me? Roy Walker here.
Sorry, Roy, we're getting a fair amount of feedback from you there.
Yeah, I see that.
Sounds like you're in space.
I think because Phyllis is also on, so maybe if one of them goes on mute, it might work.
Yeah, Phyllis is on mute.
Yeah. It's still on. I'll ask you another time.
Okay, maybe we'll try again at the end of the meeting.
John's got his hand up though. John, did you have a question?
Yeah, Ernie, you said that we need a contract if it's commercial work over $3,000.
Correct. 3,300.
Oh, it just gets ridiculous. Like I do work for a chain of restaurants, and we regularly do work, and it's reactive work that's over $3,300, and we have no opportunity to get a contract. We have an ongoing relationship with them.
And you can have an ongoing standing contract in place if you're undertaking regular works there.
Yeah.
How about when you go and do a job, and often you will go and get called out for a water leak or a blocked drain, and during the course of the job, or even it will exceed $3,300. You don't know that because you're there trying to stop the water leak. And can you sign a contract retrospectively?
You can. The legislation in a nutshell says that once you assume or realise that the figure will go above that threshold of 3,300, then a contract has to be put in place. So that for the people who do in charge or emergency work, like you're saying, once you realise that it will exceed that threshold, then you have to organise a contract.
And John, MPAQ has the master contract templates that we offer, and so that's the kind of contract where you'd put it in place with a client, and then that would be an overarching contract that would go for a period of time rather than for one specific job as well.
Okay, thank you.
Just prior to the meeting, I received an email from Rob. Rob is here today, asking me about on-site wastewater and can the installing plumber commission them. And it's a good question. And if you look at the scope of work there for plumbing and drainage on your left-hand side of your screen, it says it includes installing and commissioning on-site wastewater treatment. Now, it does also mention maintaining there, but if we look on the right-hand side of the screen from the plumbing and drainage regulation, you are required to have an endorsement to maintain an on-site facility. So you can install it, you can commission it, but you can't maintain it without the endorsement.
Rob Beaver.
Yes, Rob?
I've rung a few manufacturers and they have a differing opinion on that because commissioning is classed as servicing. The first commission or first class is the first servicing. So it may be called commissioning, but it's also the first commissioning. Now I work in a shire, 2 shires here. Livingston Shire Council don't require the endorsement on your licence, but the Rocky Regional Council does require the endorsement on your licence to commission it, as well as servicing. So I spoke to a number of manufacturers, and the manufacturers are saying, unless a person is trained by the manufacturer or a consultant, their own consultant, it may not cover the warranty, and the homeowner won't even be aware of that. So I think it's a dangerous area, and I'd like to see it further in black and white.
Yeah, so from a manufacturer's point of view, they can say we want the installer to be trained under our method or our product or something like that, and they're perfectly able to do that, but that doesn't equal the endorsement we're talking about. That's just product training, and manufacturers can do that from a warranty standpoint or something like that. But from a legal and law perspective, you don't need the endorsement to commission the unit, only to maintain it.
Well, I disagree because there's a number of things you do during the commissioning period, like setting the air valves, making sure the stud return working, make sure the air blower's got the correct back pressure. So a general plumber won't have the equipment or the knowledge how to do that.
Okay.
So
happy to take that on board, Rob, but
it seems a bit disheartening to me to see one council's endorsing it and the other council's not endorsing it. Why isn't it just blanket? Everyone either accepts it or doesn't accept it.
Rob, I could get in my car now and drive 20 minutes in 5 different directions to get 5 different answers to any question.
Okay, well, still doesn't. I think it takes away from our licensing and our trade to let not unregulated, but people who haven't got the endorsement to do this work, and it may affect the performance of the system because the next time it's going to be serviced is going to be 3 months' time by whoever they engage to do the servicing. So I think it's crucial that they have got the endorsement, at least have the knowledge from the manufacturer to be able to do that at commissioning.
Well, one would think, and we will have to move on. We might have some time after, Rob, to have a chat.
Sure.
But if someone's installing an on-site treatment plant that they are not sure of what they're doing, or they haven't used that system before, or if they haven't undertaken the manufacturer's training, I think perhaps they should.
I agree, but no one's regulating it, then.
That's a product thing. That's not regulated, no.
Right, thank you.
And sorry, Ernie, Damien did just have a question. Damien, is that in regards to the contract work you were talking about? He just said, is that plumbing work or building work?
Yeah, it's in regards to the $3,300. I thought that was only building work, for building or renovation work rather than plumbing work.
No, we fall under construction, so or building work technically, but yeah, it pertains to us, mate.
Okay. I always thought there was two sides to it. I thought it was 3,300 and then the 13,000. So 3,300, you only had to sign a contract before the job was completed, and there was I think it might have been over 10 grand or 11 grand. It used to be for signing a contract prior to work starting.
Well, you should have your contract in place prior to work starting, but obviously if it's due in charge or ongoing, something like that, it may not be possible. But
unless you're working under a builder.
If you're working under a builder, you should have a subcontract in place with the builder.
Cool. Okay, next one, Kent, did you want to take us through the hydrogen update?
Yeah. Yep, sure. Let me just move my screens around. Okay, yeah, thanks everyone. I'll keep this really brief. Could talk probably an hour, and I hate talking, so I could probably talk about an hour on hydrogen, but I'll keep it really, really brief. I'm sure everyone's heard about hydrogen industry in Queensland and how we want to lead the way in the world, and we certainly have the natural resources to do that. So in May this year, the RSHQ, which is the old Department of Natural Resources and Mines, released a draft code of practice to the industry for consultation. Us plumbers certainly got together with other industry bodies and put our thoughts forward. The code of practice related to production, distribution, and also the final end user. And we as plumbers and gas fitters are obviously the final end users. The reason they put the code of practice together was because there is at the moment no real hard and fast rules around the production, the installation and the distribution of hydrogen in any of its forms. So basically there was nothing for anyone to comply to, and everything had to go back through RSHQ. And the reason they put it through as code of practice and not legislation is because it's so fluid at the moment, and it's so much easier to change a code of practice and bring everyone else up to speed rather than write a set of rules that are going to change, in my opinion, quite regularly as we develop this technology. The code of practice was put in place to give us a pathway for safety. At the moment, everything, and see further down my slides, everything is to be notified to RSHQ. If it has anything to do with hydrogen, they need to know about it, because obviously at the end of it, they have the final say whether it's approved or not. It covers lots of different areas, but the main five, or the main three that I've listed down, is to identify the activities and facilities regulated by the petroleum and gas safety legislation. It provides guidance on how to comply. At the moment, you will be hard pressed to find any written evidence or any written documents from Australia or Queensland on how to comply to a hydrogen installation. So everything will be in line with the code of practice, and it will all be going through RSHQ for approval. It also outlines alternative means of achieving a safe outcome. So when it's in its blended form, so when it's coming down the natural gas pipeline at up to 10 to 15%, you'll be covered under your normal gasworks license, and the rules of the 5601 Part 1 will apply. When that becomes more than 15%, or even 100% hydrogen, the 5601 just simply doesn't have the legs in it to cover that resource because it's a totally different type of gas with totally different characteristics. The code of practice also covers, like I've just said, operating plant, distribution, refueling stations, gas systems, blended and 100%, and also anything that's out of scope, like diesel engine blends, aviation, aerospace, marine vessels, export, and non-fuel uses for hydrogen, such as ammonia production. Just that one paragraph tells you how diverse this whole industry is going to get. Section 6 of the code describes the hydrogen activities that are regulated by the provisions in the Petroleum Gas Act legislation for gas devices and gas systems, and it applies to both blended and 100% hydrogen supply points. So it'll tell you how to approve a gas device, what installation requirements there are, what certifications you need to go through, how you get approved as an authorised person to install hydrogen, and also what limitations on your Gasworks licence. If you currently have a Gasworks licence, there'll be limitations on that. Periodic inspections and workshop requirements for automotive installations. Someone asked me last night at the forum what a blended network will go to, and from what I'm hearing, the absolute maximum anyone's ever talked about is 18%. I don't think we'll see that in Queensland. I think we'll see somewhere between 10 and 15% blended with natural gas, purely because the infrastructure and the networks won't cope with 100% hydrogen in their current form. And also, if we go much above 15% blend, it changes the burning characteristics of the appliances, which means a whole lot of conversions will need to take place. At 15%, the lobe index of the gas, the flame characteristics, everything else is very, very similar to natural gas, to the point where not even the conversion will need to take place. Probably the only other thing I really wanted to touch on was fuel cells. Fuel cells are probably going to be the first mainstream 100% hydrogen appliance we all see. They're starting to surface now. There's lots of people in that space, and if you are in the right circles and listen to the people that are investing in the hydrogen space, you'll know that they have been there before, done it all with LNG, all with CNG, and these people are cashed up and they are not silly. So if they're pushing millions and millions of dollars worth of investment into this, it's going to happen. So the MPAQ's certainly involved heavily with the training, with the Energy Minister, with everyone in government involved in the hydrogen space, the resource sector. Penny certainly has opened the doors. We've certainly got a seat at almost every conversation we need to be at. And the first thing that we push almost every time is that a customer awareness needs to take place now, because while everyone's heard about hydrogen, everyone's almost shrugging off that it's never going to happen. And I can assure you it is. It will happen, and it's happening quicker than anyone else thought. World Plumbing Conference in 2019 gave us a 20 to 25 year plan. We are 3 years into that 20-year plan, and I reckon we're 3/4 of the way through that 25-year plan. So it is going to happen. We all need to keep on board, and MPAQ is certainly representing our association, our members at the highest level, and getting our say in everything that's coming forward. If anyone wants to know anything about hydrogen, well, I shouldn't say that. If anyone wants to pick my brain about hydrogen, I'm certainly happy to talk to anyone about it and ask questions if I don't know the answers already. So it pretty well stitches up my quick chat.
Cool. Thanks, Ken. All right. So the last thing that we wanted to cover off on was just a quick update about some of the upcoming events that MPAQ has going on. So if you're regional, we've been running trade expos all over Queensland, and we've got our final 2 coming up in 2 weeks' time in Cairns and Townsville. So lots of good suppliers to come and chat to. There's some learning sessions happening at those, and yeah, just a good way to network with some of the other local plumbers. Our Plumbing and Gas Industry Awards, so the finalists are about to be announced for that one, and then the awards ceremony will take place on Friday the 14th of October. So tickets are selling very quickly, so make sure you get your ticket if you haven't already. Golf days, we have our final golf day for the year on the 28th of October. So we made the decision to do 2 Brisbane golf days this year. Again, the tickets for that one are selling fairly quickly, and it is pretty close to selling out already. So if you're interested in that one, if you have any women in your business, we have our Women's Plumbing Alliance group, and they're doing a Melbourne Cup lunch on the 1st of November. And then our final event for the year will be our one in support of International Men's Day. It's a charity event raising money for mates in construction, and it's a trivia night, so that one should be a lot of fun. And yeah, hopefully we'll be able to raise a lot of money for mates at that one. And then Penny did also ask me to raise the Service Trades Council. So they are hosting a forum in Rockhampton on Wednesday, the 5th of October from 4 till 6 p.m. So if you're in Rocky, keep an eye out for that one. We'll send out some details a little bit closer to that date as well. And I think that's just about it. Does anyone have any final topics that they wanted to raise, or any final questions they wanted to ask before we wrap things up? Does anyone have any exciting plans for the weekend?
Rob Weaver, Emma. Sorry, Summer.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm just trying to see how the staff members recovered from a golf day.
In Rocky?
Yes.
Yeah, it was all good. So we had Kat fly back early after having some health issues up there, but she's all good now. So yeah, and the Rocky Golf Day was outstanding as always. They raised a lot of money for our charity partner, Mates in Construction, which was awesome. They're always very generous in Rocky, so that's really great to see. And thank you, Rob, for your help on the day.
It's a pleasure. I have another question for Ernie. And is a change in the backflow prevention RPZ test procedure. When will that be enforced? Thanks.
Sorry, I could have mentioned that as well, Rob. With the, as I mentioned at the start, with the new PCA coming out, that will call up the new 3500, which calls up the 2845.3, which is your backflow testing standard. So the new standard will come into effect at the same time as 3500, which potentially will be 1 May next year. There are new test procedures, so you will need the new standard. You can access that for free through our website, and get your you can print it out. You can store it on your local machine. You can print it out if you wish, but those new test procedures will have to be adhered to from that date.
I'm just wondering how all the other backflow prevention endorsements are going to know about this change of procedure.
Well, I mean, from us, we've certainly let people know that how we can. I can't say for anyone else, Rob. I mean, they should be maintaining their knowledge and their awareness, but obviously not everyone can.
Is it addressed in their revalidation that they have to do, Annie?
It will get picked up in their revalidation, but if their revalidation is not due for 4 years or 5 years, 2008 or something like that, then they won't pick it up for another 5 years.
Rob Weaver again, Emma. The only reason I picked it up is because it came out in the Plumbing Connection magazine. I read an article there to say it was going to come out the 1st of September this year, which only corrected me and told me no, that's not the case. So that's the only reason I picked it up. So I'm just wondering how the other people with the backflow endorsement are going to find out about this change things.
So Damien just mentioned that Moreton Bay Council, Stephen Renton from there has been reaching out to anyone who's tested in the region in the last 2 years. So I wonder, is that something that we should be asking the councils to be communicating, Ernie?
Well, we could. Whether the local government's prepared to do that or whether their register's active or up to date, would probably, but the bigger ones certainly would.
Because Logan's got their fancy new digital system. Surely they would have a pretty good record of all the licensees in that are testing in their area.
They should do, yeah. Logan, Morton, and Woomba all run that system.
Mm.
But Rob, when we know for certain what's happening, I mean, we can certainly keep reminding people coming up to that date. But outside the association, I'm not sure how they'll get that information without local government or someone else doing that as well.
Okay.
We simply don't have the details of everyone to be able to send that information out to everyone.
Who would have those details, Annie?
QBCC would.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say through.
We could.
Sorry, it's Penny. I was just going to say through the Service Trades Council, we can communicate that out through the pipeline newsletter as well.
There you go.
Well, I think that's the least they can do is to notify people of the change, because people just go on from day-to-day business as they do normally.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good point, Rob. Yep.
Ernie, are you going to be printing new plastic sheets, test sheets for your you can keep in the box?
Yep, already got them. They're sitting in a box in the stationery room, and ready to go when the new standard becomes active.
Let me know if you need someone to road test it.
Oh, fair enough.
Cool. All right. If no one has anything else that they wanted to raise, we might wrap things up. Thank you so much to everybody for joining. I hope you all have a good Friday afternoon and a good weekend. And the next member meeting is in December. So I think it's the 2nd of December, that one, Emma, if you know off your top of your head. Yep, December 2nd. So that'll be our final one for the year, obviously. But hopefully we'll see you on that one. We'll release what topics we're going to be chatting about ahead of time. But yeah, otherwise, thank you so much, everybody, for attending. And somebody just asked about the recording. Yes, it has been recorded. So we will send that out after the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.